Hello and welcome to Career Lunch Break. I'm your host, Erin Lewber, and today I have with me one of my favorites, the one, the only
Mm.
Tim Slade. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Erin, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm better now that you're here. This is a return guest. So last season, Tim was one of my top guests, most listened to
I
episodes. I don't know if you know that.
didn't. No, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That makes
Yeah.
me so happy.
So,
It's a great thing to hear
yeah.
on a Friday.
Yeah, I know. So, we were talking because my good friend Tim wrote another book. He doesn't have one book, he now has two books. And
Hmm.
so he has written the Instructional Design Handbook. And so I thought, this is a really good fortuitous moment where we can say it's a great time to chat. It's a great time to talk about your book. It's a great time to answer some questions that people ask about instructional design and the industry. And so we're just going to talk about all the things.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Yes, this is my second book, and this is a book that's been in the works for gosh, almost 2 years now, and I'm so happy to finally get it done. I was working on the actual final edits last night, and so it's officially done, 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 and I don't have to touch it anymore because I was getting really sick of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we could just start because we are talking about the book. Let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about you wrote one book and so now you have
Yes.
another book here. And I would love
Yeah.
to maybe start with tell me what's in this book. Somebody's going to get this. Like, what was your vision when you wrote this? Who did you write it for? And what's somebody going to get and walk away from with this book when they buy it?
Yeah, well, I'll share a little bit about my first book and how that came about, and then how that led to this book. So I wrote my first book, gosh, almost 10 years ago now, when I was leading a team of instructional designers at a technology company. And this particular team that I took over, it was a group of people who had all fallen into instructional design in some way or another. And we were primarily doing e-learning development on this team. And so I spent the first 6 months of my time in this job upskilling and reskilling all these people to be e-learning developers. And after I finished that whole experience, I came out of it and I was like, "Oh, I think I could write a book now to help others do this thing." Because one thing that's very true about instructional design is there's very few people who it's increasing now, but like most people who work in instructional design fall into it by accident. And so I wanted to create a book that at the time was everything I wish somebody had handed me when I was first getting started. And so I wrote that in 2016, 2017, and then I rewrote a new edition of that book, a second edition in 2020, right when we were in the middle of the pandemic. And it was actually really perfect timing because I wasn't intentional. It sounds intentional, but it really wasn't. During the pandemic, everything was going virtual and everything was e-learning and teams were working remotely. And so that book hit at the right time because it was like the right message at the right moment when everyone was like, we got to do e-learning now. How do we do that? And so the reason I decided to write this book, the Instructional Design Handbook, which I have right here, I'll fold a beautiful
Wow, look at
hardcover edition of
that.
it. Yeah. I think we're in another one of those transition moments because we have AI now, and certain things are getting automated and certain things are changing, and it's muddied the waters in terms of people having an understanding of what instructional design is and how it works. And despite the fact that AI can do some really amazing things, there's still a lot about our work in instructional design that requires good human judgment. And so this book is designed to help tackle that so that at the end of the day, you can still use AI, but you're still going to be somebody who can think for yourself and make good instructional decisions to help drive performance within your organization. And so it's for teams, it's for people who are brand new to instructional design to help them understand how it works in the real world. And it's also for L&D teams to help them maybe figure out how do we run our team and operationalize what we do for our organization.
I love that,
Yeah.
and it's interesting that you say that about AI because I have a similar conversation with people a lot about resumes and kind of the job search stuff that I specialize in, and it's like, "Well, can't I have AI do that?" Yes, but slash and you have to know how to have an eye for what's good. You have to understand if the output is meeting the bar, exceeding the bar, or it's falling below expectation. And if you don't have a clear sense of what quality looks like on the output, it's actually quite difficult to use AI effectively. And so I think of like AI as putting gas on a flame, but if you're kind of fueling a flame that you don't know how to control or do something with it, can be really not that it can be counterproductive, quite frankly. Like, you can really amplify a bunch of garbage quickly with AI. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you're seeing that and if maybe that's a similar thing that you're seeing in the ID world too, but I
Yeah.
know I'm definitely seeing it in resumes.
I totally agree with you on all of that, and to make that connection with resumes and instructional design, or anything that requires you as a human to know what it is that you're doing. I mean, I'll talk about resumes, and then I'll make the connection to instructional design. I think the thing a lot of people forget when they think I'm just gonna have AI write my resume is I'm always like, yeah, okay, but when you get in that interview and you're sitting across the table, virtually or in person, with a hiring manager or recruiter, you are going to be asked questions against that resume. So you need to understand what you put into it and what that stuff means and speak to it at the end of the day. Otherwise, you're going to embarrass yourself. And maybe some people need to go through that to realize, like, oh, I don't know what that said, those big words that AI put into it for me, right? And I think the same thing is true with instructional design. Like, at the end of the day, there's all sorts of use cases for how you can use AI to improve your workflows or make it a little bit faster. But just like you're going to be sitting across the table with a hiring manager, if you're an instructional designer in an organization and you're sitting across the table with a stakeholder or a senior leader, you have to be able to explain and speak to whatever that bot generated and spat out for you. You know what I mean? And so that still requires good judgment because it's just garbage in, garbage out with AI, you know? So that's what I hope the book tackles, and I hope people understand that the importance of the judgment at the end of the day, whether you're writing a resume or you're building training or whatever you're doing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. It's it's a very interesting time to be working right now and I mean, to your point about, talking about, like, the people not paying attention to the output, I'm seeing that even, in my day-to-day where it's fun to move fast, right? It's fun to get the instant answer. It's fun to get the instant output. And
Yeah.
what I've noticed is that it's removed a lot of people from that less fun, slower component of understanding what's actually in there, knowing the purpose of it, knowing, and agreeing with and having a perspective on and being able to speak in a compounding way to what is in a document or something you've designed. So yeah, I'm curious to see how we're all gonna continue to harmonize with AI and, use it in useful ways, but not have it in a way where we're all just, like, kinda sitting here not knowing what's going on with anything because we don't have a stake in any of the stuff that we're
Yeah.
doing anymore. But,
Yeah.
feels a little
Yeah.
wild and crazy right now.
I mean, I agree. I find, and don't get me wrong, this isn't an anti AI stance. I'm
Yeah.
I'm very much a pragmatist when it comes to AI, and I use it every day for all sorts of things. But you see little bits of evidence in the world or on LinkedIn, to your point, where like people are moving fast and they're very much excited about the speed of the output. And then they're not really paying attention to what that output is saying. And my favorite example of that is like anytime you see one of those AI infographics, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty damn sure those people who generate those things and put them out, I'm like, you didn't read this thing. Because if you ever zoom in and read them, like they're gibberish. There's all sorts of
Yeah.
gibberish and things that don't make any sense. And it's a perfect example of
Yeah.
like shiny object syndrome where
Yeah.
there's no there a lot of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably maybe a good piece of advice, slow down. Like, yes, it's fun to go fast, but also maybe slow down and hit the brakes every once in a while. Be like, "Does this all make sense?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. And to your point, like if you generate something for your resume and you read a thing, you have to be able to go like, do I conceptually understand what that bullet point says? And could I
Right.
speak to it if somebody asked me, like, what do you mean you synergized multicultural, interdimensional systems in a cross-functional matrixed work environment? You know what I mean? Right? If you don't know what that means, then you should probably rewrite that shit.
That's pretty good that you just came up with that off the cuff. We're just gonna make that a clip on this
Like
when we cut all this. We're just gonna have you saying that, and that's gonna be the clip.
I'm good with that.
Oh, all right. So in advance of us talking, I sent
Mm,
a request out to my email list and just said, "Hey, I'm going to
yes.
be talking to Tim, and he's got a book coming out. And we're going to be talking about all the things. And what questions do you have?"
Mm,
And I've got like a host of questions here that I could maybe throw at you
yeah,
if you're up for it.
I'm good for it.
Okay. So let's start here because this is actually kind of on the heels of us talking about AI. Maybe we'll answer this. I see a couple of AI questions. So let's check those off and then we'll move on from those.
Sure.
Okay, so the first one says if AI can now generate passable training content in minutes, what's the new bar for what makes an instructional designer truly valuable? And what skills are becoming obsolete faster than people realize?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, so I think what's important to understand is that instructional design, training, performance improvement, behavior change is not content. It's not content. If your understanding or if anyone's understanding of instructional design is content creation, then there's some fundamental understanding misunderstandings. And that's not to say that organizations don't or different organizations and teams don't operate that way where they think all training is just like, hey, let's convert this PowerPoint deck to an e-learning course and put it in the LMS. And so despite the fact that yes, AI allows us to generate content and transform it faster than ever, the thing that is going to be the valuable skill set in the future as an instructional designer is making sure we're generating the right things that solve the right problems. And so, I don't for any of the listeners who saw what Claude launched the other week with Claude Design, I put out a video where I played with it for an hour and I was able to generate all sorts of really great amazing things really quickly. And so my belief is that, if as the speed in which we can generate content and generate experiences goes up, then the reaction and effect of that is that we need to be that much more vigilant that we're generating the things that solve the right problems. And that's the part that requires the human judgment, the thinking, the collaboration within your organization, all of those things that get ignored a lot of times on LinkedIn because they're not sexy and visual, like what you can, put a code block into an authoring tool. Well, yeah, a lot of that's going to be automated. And so my belief is that the skill set of development of being a developer is actually going to go down, and the skill set for good judgment and discernment will go up as a result.
Yeah, I was having a conversation. It was a at work conversation today, and we were talking about uh, sort of this idea, the same thing about how our work streams change and how
Mm,
our jobs somewhat change as we have this automation AI kind of piece to stuff now.
yep.
And two of the words that I had jotted down because I really liked them was hyper specialized and domain expertise.
Hmm.
And both of those words, when I think about them, that's really where and this might actually jump a little bit into this next question I'm going to ask you, but those both really do speak to that same thing. It's like being a curator of something and knowing what quality looks like and knowing what the objective is and how to get to that objective. And so you're going to use these tools to maybe get to that finish line a little bit faster or more efficiently than you used to. But you really have to be someone who has that domain level of expertise to say, I understand the problem. I understand what we're trying to solve here. I understand how we need to get there or what we need to accomplish. And so now I'm going to leverage these tools to help make that happen in a more efficient, effective, maybe better experience kind of way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, the way I like to think of it is it's like AI is like a replicator, like from Star Trek. I don't know if you have any Star Trek fans out there.
Are you a Star Trek
Imagine
fan?
I am a huge Star Trek fan. I know.
You're a Trekkie?
I'm a Trekkie. You should see, I don't have it here, but I have all sorts of
No.
like, I have like Star Trek Legos. It's pretty sad. But
No, I
my
love that
point
for you.
is,
I love that. My
is
son's big
that
into Star Wars, which has nothing to do with that, which I know. But
no, no, I'm
but
not, I mean,
I know
yeah.
each has like a whole following, right? Like
Like, it's a
it's
whole yeah, it's
huge.
like it's like Marvel versus whatever the other one is, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know the other one.
But it's like a replicator, right? Like, imagine if you have a replicator where you could make any food appear that you want, and, like, if I can make any food appear for dinner that I want, it's like what would your kids eat if you gave them a replicator? They'd be like, "Great, I'm gonna have a freaking ice cream sundae for dinner every night, and I'm gonna have fries, and then I'm gonna have ice cream sundae, and then I'm gonna have an ice cream sundae with chocolate, and an ice cream sundae with 10 cherries on top." And then it's like my point is that eventually you have to start getting really thoughtful of like, if I can replicate any piece of food, then I gotta really be thoughtful about what I'm putting in my body. If I can make
Yeah.
anything appear in front of me right away, right? And AI is kind of the same way. It's like we're in this stage where it's like, oh my God, I can generate an ice cream sundae with a unicorn on top. You know what I mean? And then I can put it on LinkedIn and make an AI avatar out of it. Holy shit. And it's like, yeah, but nobody needs an ice cream sundae with a unicorn on top that's an AI avatar. You know what I mean? So we're still in that stage.
Yeah. Maybe they do need that, and you just stumbled on something great,
Yeah, they
Tim.
probably need therapy too, then, you know?
You can use AI for that too. No, you
Yeah,
can't.
there you
You should
go,
not.
right?
I am not
Cheers.
endorsing that. Oh. All right,
Knock
we have
yourself out.
another AI question here. It says, with the rapid evolution of tools, AI, and the changing organizational demands, what is the best way to stay current and employable in instructional design? Specifically, which tools should I prioritize mastering right now to improve my resume and the impact of my portfolio?
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to say something that goes against all of the grain. I wouldn't be focusing and obsessing about tools so much because the tools are constantly changing. There is no one set of tools that every instructional designer uses or should be using. Every team uses different tools. They're constantly adopting new tools. There are so many new tools hitting the market every day right now, and AI is constantly changing. And so, my honest recommendation is to, when it comes to AI, there's such a disparity between what you see and hear on LinkedIn when you're a job seeker and then what you experience when you actually get into a job and a role. And so if you were to be on LinkedIn right now, you would think every L&D team, they're creating adaptive, crazy AI experiences where you're an AI, human, hybrid performance consultant, and you're going to create an agent that's going to do da 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 da. Like, that's not actually happening in most organizations. Most organizations are still trying to figure out, like, can I rewrite an email with Copilot? So my point is when it comes to AI, like, r- eh, having just a basic understanding of the basics and being able to speak to, like, yeah, I use AI to help me read through a transcript and pull out key bits of data. I use AI, I give it some data and it pulls out some themes for me. Or I use AI and I created something that's a little bit more complex than what I could have done on my own. Those basic use cases are where the vast majority of teams are operating, because the vast majority of teams don't have access to all the crazy stuff that you see on LinkedIn. And then when it comes to tools, I mean, again, just keep it focused on the basics and have a basic understanding of tools. At the end of the day, the thing that's going to make or break anyone else's success is not going to be who has the longest list of tools on their resume. It's going to be, do you understand how to think like an instructional designer and have the judgment about what should or shouldn't be built? Can you connect training to behavior change to business results? Those are the things that are more important, not, hey, can I use the latest version of Storyline and Rise and all of the tools? Tools come and
Yeah.
go. Tools are very easy to learn nowadays.
Yeah, and I would plus one on that whole, like, business impact component that you just talked through. I think that does get lost, and it's not just instructional designers. It's not just people who are looking at from that perspective. I would say in
Yep.
general, it's interesting how often I sit down with someone who's been working in their discipline, whatever it may be, for quite some time, and there's like this removal or this kind of block between understanding each of us goes to work to do something that delivers a business value. And
Yep.
so being able to source what is the business problem, what is the solution, and then what is the value or the ROI that I created. And
Yep.
understanding that framework and that concept, I believe is one of the most important pieces because then you can start to reverse engineer and pick out the examples or the things that show that you can do those types of actions. But um, someone else asked a question. I want to weave this one in, and
Yeah.
it's for a transitioning educator into
Okay.
instructional design. And, we know that there is a large cohort of educators who absolutely look at instructional design as kind of they're like, oh, I'm going to pivot and leave the classroom and I'm going to become an instructional designer because it's just like teaching.
Right.
And the question that I'm seeing here is what's the biggest mindset shift that an educator
Ugh,
would need to make to design for business impact instead of classroom engagement?
that's a great question. Okay, so the fact that they're even asking that question is so
Like,
important. So it kind of goes back to what I was going to say as a follow up to the last question after your comment, and this is a perfect thing. Is that the biggest thing you can understand the difference of is I'm going to say spend some time learning and researching business acumen. So, back when I used to lead my instructional design team, this was at GoDaddy. One of the things I would always remind my team of is like, as much as we want to create fun and engaging learning and training, at the end of the day, this business is we're in the business of selling domains and websites. That's what this is about. It's about selling domains and websites and making money. Just like when I worked at Kohl's, I had a VP who's always reminded me, he's like, at the end of the day, Kohl's is here to sell underwear. We're here to sell underwear and socks and t-shirts. And so everything needs to be about how do we connect back to that. And so the thing I would say for an educator, two things I'm going to say is big mindset shifts for educators. One that's very tactical and one that's more philosophical. One is understand that a business we don't create training for training's sake. We're not interested in creating training to lighten the lives of the workers or to fulfill their curiosity. We create training so that they can do something better and different on the job so that the company can make more money. That's it. At the end of the day, it's like how does a business make more money? That's it. Through performance. And so it's not about knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's about how do we get that salesperson to better qualify a customer for a credit card? How do we get that salesperson to better overcome objections? How do we get that salesperson to close a deal? How do we get the dock people to unload merchandise faster so that the product can be on the sales floor so that the customers can purchase it? Everything comes back to how do we operationalize the business to maximize profits? So business acumen, and that's one of the things I focus a lot on in the book. Is I have like dozens of these examples in action that help people connect the work that we do in instructional design and how we bring that back to the business. So I would encourage that. The other thing I would say, the biggest mindset shift, and this is I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Aaron. I think the biggest thing I would say philosophically, career wise, is that, as an educator, your career identity and your job were all like tangled up and intertwined. Like your identity as a professional was intertwined with like what subject did you teach? What school did you teach at? What classroom did you teach in? What grade did you teach in? And and as you're making this transition out of that, you think a lot of teachers think, well, I'm ending my career. And I always remind them like you're not ending your education career if you're moving into instructional design. You just ended a job and you are continuing your education career but just in a different context. It was just a job. It was a pit stop. And in the private sector, the thing that I know has been true for me, and I assume it's been true for you as well, Aaron, like my job and my career are not the same thing. My job was just a pit stop along the way. The career is where the bigger picture of where I was headed to. And so for teachers who think, well, gosh, I'm ending my education career, and they go through this whole mourning process where they feel like, God, I've failed or whatever. It's like, no, 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 no. You just ended a job. All jobs are supposed to be temporary. It was never supposed to last forever. So what you're doing is a normal, healthy thing that in the private sector, like people come and go all day long and they don't even think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
stop there. Does that make sense,
It no,
Aaron?
I definitely see it carrying a level of weight that you don't see in other domains.
Yeah.
And I do think that There is it's interesting because I think about this a lot. It's a very demanding job. I
Mhm.
would say most of us couldn't do it and
I
wouldn't have the
agree.
patience for it. I think the pay is not good, and as someone who's motivated by what I'm paid, I look at that and I just think, "Why would you go do that every day and put up with that for" like, that is ROI upside down for a
Right.
teacher.
Yep.
But there's some sort of very strong, I don't know what you would call it, like messaging, branding, advertising almost of education to say it's an identity, it's a culture, it's what you're part of.
Yes.
And so there is sort of this like, hear like mom life or it's almost like
Mhm.
teacher life, like
Yep.
it's like a persona, it's who you are. And you see that a lot of women are teachers. It's I would still say predominantly you see most schools have teachers who are women,
Yep.
and you see a lot of friendships forged. So I do think that there's something tricky at play there sometimes where it has become more than a job because your friendships are there, your identity starts to live there, and it is tricky. Coming from a family business, I'll say I understand that maybe from that vantage point of where we sat down at the dinner table to talk about our day, and our day involved the family business.
Yeah.
And so those 2 things didn't exist as work and family, it was work family.
Yep.
And, I think for a lot of teachers, it's the same thing. It becomes like a little microcosm of a life that is very hard to pull apart from.
Yeah.
That said, what you said about, having sort of a career and then having jobs or having, roles that you work in throughout that career, that is the right way to think about it. That is, I think, a healthier way for all of us to think about it, that a career exists and even a career has the ability to shape and mold and adjust and
Mhm.
take a left instead of a right or something like that. But when you yeah when you look at education, I do see a lot of difficulty in pulling that apart and almost grieving it as a loss or a failure or
Yep.
something that's almost to be like you have to come to terms with the fact that you couldn't continue doing that. And I think that, you know, making a choice and saying, I've done this, and so now it's time to do something else. Like I don't know. There's just probably there's a lot of emotion tied up
Yeah,
in it.
and it's totally understandable. And so I think it's important to understand that like when I talk about like it was a temporary pit stop, it wasn't a failure. It's not the end of your career. I don't want anyone to misconstrue that as me saying like, well, you just got to get over it and move on.
Yeah.
But the thing that I will say is that in my experience having worked with like hundreds of teachers, Th a lot of times they think, "Oh, it's the keywords on my resume. It's the, do I have the right mix of portfolio projects? Did I learn all the proper tools or da 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 da?" And the reality is 99% of the time, that is not the thing that's holding people back. It's that they are still mentally existing in a world that they are also trying to escape at the same time, and they're trying to honor this commitment that was either imposed upon them or came from some sort of inner drive, and then also trying to prioritize themselves in that conflict is the thing that's really in the way for a lot of teachers. And so the thing that I think oftentimes is the breakthrough moment is the when that transitioning teacher finally realizes that choosing to prioritize themselves, potentially at the perceived expense of others, is a healthy and okay thing to do, because you choosing to leave the classroom is not failing those kids. Those kids are going to be just fine. The other teachers, they will be fine. The school will be fine. Nobody's going to die because you chose to prioritize your life and your career. And once teachers realize that, then I find that they tend to those issues that they think they're having with their keywords on
Mhm.
their resume or the ATS optimization or the portfolio, that all seems to go away really quickly once they get over that.
I think for a lot of people, it's really hard to come to terms with they'll be fine without me.
Yeah, oh, I know, and because we carry the weight of our worlds on our shoulders, you know what
right?
I mean?
When you
Yeah.
operate in your day to day, carrying a level of responsibility or you have that sort of emotional investment or that personal investment in doing your best, trying your best, really going above and beyond. Like people who really operate as high level ownership individuals.
Mhm.
I think because I even struggle with this sometimes. It's really hard to look at something that you take so seriously and to say, or I could just disappear from that equation and they'll be fine without me. Like, what does that mean about me, right? And I think that that's a really something we don't maybe talk about enough, that there is that emotional coming to terms with like how do I still feel valuable if I just said they'll be fine without me?
Yeah, but like at some point you have to realize when are you going to be fine with yourself? You know what I mean? Like when are you going to prioritize yourself? I'll tell you a great example. My high school theater teacher, I just tagged her on LinkedIn, by the way. And she liked it and I loved it. And I haven't spoken to her in a long time. But Miss LaChapelle, she was my high school theater teacher. I worshiped this woman and this was even after I graduated high school. Like 2 years after I graduated high school, she and her husband decided they were moving to Georgia, and let me tell you, we thought the world was like we thought the sky was falling and the world like this was like a second 9/11 for all of us that she was leaving and and we
Yeah.
thought we were like the theater program's going to be over. What is the school going to do without Miss LaChapelle? And years later after she moved and everything, I in adulthood I drove to the school and I peered in the window of the drama room that was my classroom and they were fine. There weren't kids there, that would be creepy. It
Yeah.
was, like, on a weekend. And,
You're
like
staring in the window at kids.
all the posters were there, and, they still do shows, and they still have a theater program, and, like, the building didn't burn down.
Yeah.
Everything was just fine, you know what I mean? So, I know it's
Yeah.
hard because I think teachers I know we're spending a lot of time on this question, but I think teachers are very much, um, servant leaders, and I think a lot of times servant leaders, they deprioritize themselves in the service of others, and that is a hard thing to switch.
Yeah. This makes me think of the thing we talked about last time where you were talking about being self-full.
Self-full. Yeah, not
Yeah.
selfish, it's self-full.
Instead of
Yeah, agreed.
yes. I love that.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right, another question. This one's a little bit more like out maybe a next level here, but it says, is there value to instructional design even if you're not teaching or delivering a workshop? I co-host a podcast and I'm curious if you think there is benefit to understanding instructional design to the art of hosting.
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, when I think of what instructional design is at its core, instructional design is, it's about empathy and understanding where people currently are and what's standing in their way and where do they need to go and where do they need to be and how do we curate resources, content, experiences in a way that helps drive that person there. I think understanding adult learning theory helps you navigate the world. It helps you interact and be persuasive to your stakeholders and subject matter experts. I think there's a whole bunch with instructional design that could benefit people because I think if you really take the time to learn instructional design, it's this really great mix of uh, change management and performance improvement in a way that helps affect the business. And even if you're not an instructional designer or a trainer or facilitator, you find opportunities to use these skills in different contexts all the time. Yeah, for sure. It changes the way you view the world, I would say.
I like that. I know the person who asked
Yeah,
that question. I'm like, of course she would ask that question. That's such a good question.
good.
All right. I think that's enough questions. I don't want to grill you the whole time because I
Okay.
feel like the last time we talked, we just talked about some fun stuff and like, what's going on in your life that you're excited about right now?
Well, I'm excited about the book, obviously.
Yeah.
This book, uh, the book. What I'm excited about the book is that I feel like it's And I'm not doing this as a shameless plug. I was this past weekend, I have a proof of the book here, and I was spending my Friday night, and like I was just for the first time in the gosh, 4 months that I've really been in the sprint of getting the book together, I had a moment to, like, just sit and actually look at the book. Like, look at it as a thing that I created, and I think the thing I guess what I wanna say about writing a book is that I wish I could impart on people how much work and intention and effort goes into creating a book because it's not just the words on the page, I worked really hard to craft an experience with the book. And so everything from the design and the layout and the paper type and the case studies that I've included in it. And like I can look at every piece of the book and I can identify an intention behind why I did it the way I did it. And so the thing about books is that what makes them so special, especially nowadays with AI and you can just generate stuff so quickly, a book is something that is a moment in time. And so you have to get it right the first time because once it's to print, it's printed. And so it's this lift of effort and work and creativity to create a static thing, and I think that is special in a world where, you can generate something. If you don't like it, you just hit regenerate or you change the prompt, and with books, you don't really have that. Does that make any sense? I know that's a little
Mhm.
woo-woo.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, it's something that you've put a lot of time, effort, energy into, and to have a physical product that
Yeah.
is the result of it. Yeah, it's like a trophy in a sense, right? It's like a trophy to symbolize the work that you've done and and it's not just the work on the book, it's the work throughout your career and your life to learn the things within your discipline, to build
Mhm.
the tools and the systems and the courses that you have, and all of these things coming together in the perfect way to make this thing. So, I mean, it's a very admirable accomplishment. And
Yeah,
I think
it
it's like a little trophy or a recognition almost of like you did all these things and here they are.
I like that. I think of it like a symbol. It's a symbol and representation of years of work and then years of work that you've spent processing how to explain something in a way that you could communicate it to others and then packaging it in a way that is not just aesthetically pleasing but comprehensible and yeah, it's just, it's a shit ton of work and I feel really good about it. I'm really excited about it. What are you excited about right now?
I'm selling my house and I'm moving,
Mhm. Same,
and
yeah.
it's bitter. Yeah, we were talking about this before we hit record, but it's bittersweet, you know? It's
Yeah.
a change. Interesting, right? I think this is relevant because, I talk a lot about career change and the different seasons in your career. And Um, I mean, there's also that same thing that happens in other parts of our life, leaving a home. And so it's like, on the one hand, I'm thrilled because listed my house and I got what I was asking for it and we're on our way towards closing. And there's another part of me that quiet was like, well, if it would have not gone well, then I could have just stayed. And, I
Yeah.
really like my house. And, I mean, you almost want to backpedal and talk yourself out of it. So I am really excited about it because for people who know me maybe better than just the average listener, I've had a rough several years in my life.
Mhm.
And, we'll leave it at that. But this is kind of one of those culminations of like righting the ship for me. And there's
Yeah.
been a lot of intentional work in my life in the last few years to take care of my children and get my life to a place that feels really good for my family again. And this move is kind of part of that. It's getting them closer to their school and their friends. And now we get to do the
Mhm.
fun part and go house shopping and, you know, do all that kind of thing. And the Michigan market's crazy and houses are selling like crazy. So, maybe everybody wish me good luck, send good vibes into the world that
Yeah.
I can find a house.
Absolutely. I think,
Yeah.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, and this relates to career stuff, and it's also personal stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I think? The reason why this is so important is because I think so many people try to pretend that they have this like deep separation between their life, work life, and
Mhm.
personal life, and reality, like it's all twisted and messy,
Yeah.
and they affect one another. And so I think for me, my partner and I were in the same process of selling our house, and it's really been interesting. I turned 40 last year. I turned 41 back in March, so I'm 41 and I'm 2 months now. And the thing that I noticed when I turned 40, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Like the moment I turned 40 and the weeks that followed, there was just like a really dramatic shift in my brain, and I realized like what's important to me is different, and what I want to prioritize in my life is different, and what I want to value is different. And so for me, you know, I am somebody who spent my 20s and 30s very much career driven, climbing the corporate ladder. I was looking for a title and a salary and advancement and recognition. And I got all of those things, and that was great. And I realized like I climbed the top of that mountain, and and I'm not saying that I'm not proud or I wasn't happy with it or I didn't want it, but now that I'm here or now that I got there, now I'm reevaluating like what do I want out of when I wake up in the morning, and what do I want my days to look like, and what do I want my
Mhm.
work to look like, and what do I want my house to be like, and it's just amazing how much has changed from what I prioritized even 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm. There's a, God, I wish I remember where I got it from, but it just sort of floats around in my head, and it's a phrase, and I think I learned it in the context of it was like a powerful phrase to say or something like that, I don't know, but it's, "I
Mhm.
changed my mind."
Yeah.
And I've always hung on to it, and, in my younger years, I was like, "Okay, yeah, whatever." But as to your point, I think we all hit that, or we all have a different catalyst that sort of has us facing that moment of, "Huh, like, maybe this isn't the thing anymore."
Yeah.
And that power, going back to what we were talking about with, like, teachers leaving the classroom or me selling my house or, whatever it is, sometimes you have to look at a situation and say, "But I'm gonna change my mind," or "I changed my mind," or "My
Mm.
perspective has changed on that." And I don't think we give ourselves enough freedom to think that that's a very natural, organic, correct way to live. We look at it often as flawed, that you didn't
Yeah.
stick to the one version. And
Right.
I really do think that that idea that "I changed my mind" is a really welcome phrase in life. And sure, you can't change your mind every 30 seconds because there's
Mhm.
probably another side to that that makes it not such a great thing to do. But I like the idea of reinventing, changing your mind, evolving from what you were doing before, looking at it and saying, "You know what? That was a really important goal for me at one point in my life, but now that's shifted." And it
Well, and
sounds
and
like you're kind of at that point.
I mean, we would be hypocrites as doing the work that we do for people, helping them go through that transformation if we weren't opening ourselves to our own transformations in that process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
plan on doing what I do forever, and I don't think you plan on doing what you're doing forever. It might change or shift or evolve. And I used to listen to this podcast, and the person often talked about, you know, when relationships end, and the person was talking about, so many people view when you get a divorce or whatever, they view it as a failure, or when you end a career, it's a failure. And the reframe is that some, successful things end too,
Mm.
and like I have a good friend of mine here in Arizona, and she went through a divorce a few years back, and we had this really great conversation where she's like, yeah, the marriage came to an end. And it wasn't a great marriage, but we had two amazing kids with it. And can we just celebrate that there were good things that came from that
Yeah.
broken relationship? And the same thing with careers is like a successful career can also have an ending. It doesn't need to be, infinite. Successful things can be finite, and that's good.
Yeah.
Again, you have more successful things in your life.
Right. Makes way for what's next, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
healthy.
I had this big game
Yeah.
plan that we were gonna, in the middle of our conversation, I was gonna make sure that we said that Tim was nice enough to give a book to me to give away to listeners.
Yeah.
and to promote, this upcoming launch. And so I'm going to just share that right now awkwardly in the
Sure.
middle of our conversation because we didn't smoothly weave it in like I had planned in my head. But um, you know, I want to stop what we're doing, and you are a friend. You are someone who I am so happy
Mm,
to support whenever you do
thank you.
something. You're my go-to, and I have very few go-tos in the world of like all this job search career stuff. But when someone comes to me and they're looking at something L&D, instructional design, I'm like, "Go talk to Tim." Like, Tim's the person who I trust, who I know is gonna do things the right way. And
Thank
so,
you.
um yeah, of course. But, so what I wanna do is I wanna welcome everybody who's listening. If you would like to be entered to win a copy of Tim's book, he has so graciously offered to not only give me a copy to give away, he's gonna sign it, and it's gonna ship right to your house. So
Mhm.
if you want to text or send me a DM through either Instagram or LinkedIn, send the word blueprint. That's all you have to send. You don't have to do anything else. You will be entered to win. We're going to pick a random winner. And what is today's date? The 8th. So I
Mhm.
think I needed to plan probably a date when people needed to do this by. We'll say by
That's
Friday,
okay.
May 29th, because
There you go.
that's when your pre order comes to
Yep.
an end. If you are dying to get this book before the pre-order season here is done and maybe you're not sure if you're going to win or not, I do have a code, Erin Lewber, which will give you, all one word, it will give you 10% off during the pre-order period. So you can go snag a copy right now. But definitely go enter. I would love to give a book away to someone. I would love to put this knowledge in someone's hands and support you, Tim, and everything that you've worked on. And so I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, but
No, yeah, yeah. Well, the pre-orders go through May 29th, and then the books will start shipping in mid-June. And so, whether you pre-order, you get a free copy. The books that I'm offering for the pre-orders and for the giveaway are these hardcover versions, and this after the hardcover versions are done for the pre-order, then it'll just be boring paperback. So this is the only time this version of the book will be available. So it's a super I just can't wait for people to get their hands on it. That's all I want to say. And it's my little baby, so I'm extra proud of it. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Erin.
wonderful. You bet. All right. So, I guess we got to wrap it up here a little bit. We've been chatting for
Okay.
a minute, and time always goes so fast when we talk. And I feel like we didn't even
I
talk about
know.
half the stuff we could have talked about. But we'll just have to have you back again. That's
Yeah,
my little
I'm good
trick.
with that.
I make
There
sure
we
I
go.
always end before we're done talking, so you have to come back again.
There you
All
go.
right. So we're gonna do like we always do. I definitely want to cover, we've covered some good advice already, but what's a little nugget you want to leave somebody with as we wrap up our conversation today?
Oh my gosh, my
Come
mind
on, you
went
knew I was gonna
blank.
ask you this.
Little nuggets.
Yeah.
I don't do little nuggets.
All right, give me something. Give me something heavy. Give
I'll
me
give.
something
Oh,
earth-shattering.
Jesus Christ. Hold on. I'm gonna open. I'm gonna. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm going
What?
to open up a random page from my book, and I'm going to see what
You're gonna
nugget
read
comes
to
out of the
us?
book. Yeah,
He's gonna read
sort
to
of.
us.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can find a nugget.
Okay.
Okay.
For those listening, he's flipping through the pages. I'll narrate what
Yeah.
you're doing
We
for
don't
those
want a
not
nugget
watching
from
on YouTube.
okay, here's the thing.
Okay.
I opened the book with a warning, and the warning in the book says this book may cause you to question every training you've ever built, taken, or survived. So, um, I don't know if that's a nugget, but be forewarned that the book's gonna make you question shit.
All right.
There we go.
Mic
That's
drop.
my nugget.
Mic drop. Right there.
There we go.
Tim,
This
I'm
is what you get for us making this shit up as we go
I
along.
know. This was Aaron and Tim didn't have a plan because
No.
you know what though? Every time we get together, we don't have a plan and we do just fine because you
Yeah,
are
it's
so
fine.
easy to talk to and such a just a delight of a friend. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming
I
and
appreciate
talking and
it.
sharing your book and your knowledge and all the things. And yeah, we're gonna have to do this again.
Cool. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
having me, Erin.
Okay. You betcha.
Bye.